You can call me Bob. The story I'm going to tell happened when I was around 16 years old. It was summer and I went to spend a week at my grandparents' house, who lived on a farm. I had been there before. It was always nice, and there was always a lot of good food, so I liked going there. When I arrived, everything was calm. At dinner, my grandparents talked about some strange noises they were hearing around the farm. They thought it could be an animal and asked me to be careful if I went outside, as they didn't know if the animal was aggressive or not. On the second day, everything went well. I didn't hear any noises and my grandparents didn't comment on it anymore. I spent some time outside doing running training to prepare for the upcoming football games. When it got dark, I heard some noises coming from the cornfield. I thought about approaching it, but I remembered what my grandparents had said and decided to move away, in case it was an aggressive and dangerous animal. At dinner, I mentioned that I had heard a strange noise that I had never heard before. On the third day, while training again, I heard the noise again. This time, curiosity got the best of me. It was still light, so I thought I would look from afar. I got a little closer to where the noise was coming from and tried to observe, but it was difficult with all the cornfields. After insisting so much, I ended up seeing something that I will never forget. It was like an animal, but the head was something I had never seen in my life. I can't find words to describe that. The head was not proportional to the body and looked like a mixture of a human head and something else. I ran out without looking back and ran into the house. My grandparents were in the kitchen and asked what was going on. I kept repeating that I had seen the animal. My grandfather asked what animal it was, and I replied that I didn't know, but that it didn't look like an animal, but rather a creature from another world. My family is religious and my grandmother told me to stop playing around with serious things. I knelt down, asking them to believe me. My grandfather told me to calm down, take a shower and forget about it. He asked where my hat was, and I realized it had fallen outside when I ran out. At dinner, my grandparents started telling me funny stories to distract me, but all I could think about was that. Then, everything changed. We all heard the noise the creature was making, and this time it seemed closer than ever. My grandfather went to look through the kitchen window and I went along. That thing was staring at the front door of the house. When my grandmother saw it, she started to pray. My grandfather took his shotgun to protect us, turned off all the lights and asked everyone to be quiet. The creature continued making that noise and staring at the door. So, my grandfather turned off the outside lights and, at that moment, we couldn't see anything, just hear that scary noise. Some time passed and the noise stopped. My grandfather suggested that we sleep with the lights off that night and asked me to put my mattress in their room so we could all sleep together. I agreed and went to do what he asked, all while holding a candle. Nobody wanted to say anything, everyone was scared by what they had witnessed. The next day, my grandmother woke me up early and said that we were going to the city and that my grandfather was already outside waiting for us, asking me to hurry up and get ready. When we got to town, my grandfather said I'd better go home and he would put me on a bus. I insisted a lot on staying, and he ended up agreeing. We went to the house of a well-known pastor in the city. My grandfather told me everything and asked me to tell him what he had seen. The pastor advised us to pray a lot and read some psalms in case that creature appeared again. My grandfather also called some friends to go to the farm to investigate. We got back there around 6 p.m., and my grandfather's friends arrived around 7 p.m. There was no sign of the creature, so they began to laugh and talk about their stories. Suddenly, the creature made that sound again. Everyone changed their expressions and asked if that was the sound of the animal. My grandfather confirmed, and everyone grabbed their weapons and flashlights, heading in the direction where the sound was coming from. My grandfather didn't allow me to go along. After almost an hour, they returned, all with scared and uneasy expressions. I asked what had happened, and one of my grandfather's friends said that it was a demon, something that shouldn't exist in this world. No one ever told exactly what happened that night. My grandparents sold the farm and moved away from that place. Recently, I asked my grandfather what had happened, stating that I was old enough to know. He said that that creature was the least of it and that he couldn't explain what he had seen, but he stated that that cornfield had its own hell.